Hello everybody and welcome to the Guitar Cave podcast, the place where me and my guests talk guitars, gear, metal and anything else we want really. Today as my guest I have the singer-songwriter for the band Nautilus and formerly of Darkeye. He's played Bloodstock Open Air through the Metal to the Masses programme and he's an absolute riff beast. He is Mr. Dean Hanfrey. Dean,
hello.
We're finally here. It's taken us a few times to get this date in, but we're finally here. How are you?
Yeah, well, what was it? You had to rearrange the first time with my girlfriend had in hospital last time. Inconsiderate cow. And no, we're here finally. It's good. Actually, I've been looking forward to it. Because as we were saying earlier on, guitarists have an infinite amount of shit to talk about when it comes to gear and just life in general as a musician.
I bet you could talk for days about all the stuff.
I actually made. I'll have a look on my phone. I made a list of all the stuff that I've owned over the years because I reckon there's maybe only one or two people that have actually beaten me for just the sheer amount of stuff that I've owned over the year. I tend to get, I must admit at the moment, I'm happy. Probably more so than I've ever been. But I usually get bored after 6 months and think, I'll try something else. And then and that was like the advantage of having a really good job and living at home with my parents. So I was like, I could just buy it and worry about it later on. Right, yeah.
I think that's what my dad thinks of me. I showed my dad a guitar the other day, just a nice guitar, and he goes, how much is that? And I went, oh, that's about $5,000. And he said, no, don't buy it. I went, why not? He goes, because you'll get bored after 6 months to sell it. He just thinks I sell all my gear. I'm like, no, there's a reason why I sell it and buy new stuff.
Well, it's the search, isn't it? It never ends.
Exactly. All right, well, let's do what we normally do on this podcast and go back to the basics with you and, like, where did you pick up a guitar and, like, how did you get into it in the first place?
Right, okay. I remember slightly before actually picking up the guitar, I remember the exact moment that I got into rock music. Okay. I was 8 and I was driving to Dungeness fishing with my dad and he was playing Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi. Nice. So this would have been, if I was 8, it would have been about 93. And I was like, Dad, what's this? And weirdly enough, he didn't like rock music. It was just on the radio. I was like, oh, this is Bon Jovi. He's like, my dad's like a funk soul man. I was like, this is really cool. And then got into it that way. And I remember I had 2 friends at school. One got into Guns N' Roses heavily. The other kid got into Nirvana really heavily. It was like sort of Nevermind kind of era. And I remember I was out shopping with my granddad and I was like, oh, do you know any heavy metal bands? Because my mum always said, do something different from everyone else just because you can. So I thought, I like them too, but I want to find my own thing. And I was talking to my granddad and he went, oh, I've heard Iron Maiden are quite good. And he bought me Iron Maiden live after. Yeah, well, yeah.
Understatement.
And he bought me Iron Maiden live after death on cassette. I was about 9 years old, and that was it. I was kind of sold after that. Nice. I've got pictures of me at like 9, 10 years old with a Metallica bandana on, a Brando leather jacket, jeans, and Doc Martens. So it was an early transition. And then my friend at school, a guy called Matt, he started learning the guitar. And he was the one who's into Guns N' Roses like heavily. So he started learning the guitar. He was having lessons from a guy called Gary. Who's a really nice fella, and I kind of said to my mum, like, I'd like to do that as well. And that's it. I started when I was about 9, so I should be a lot better than I am given the amount of time that I've been playing for. So yeah, I started having lessons with him, and he was like, I've never met a kid who's into such heavy stuff as you. Like, I remember going to, do you remember MVC?
Oh yeah.
I went into MVC and I was like, Mum, can I buy a CD? And she was like, yeah, like here's a tenner. And I bought a big...
You could walk out of MCC with a lot for a tenner.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So I walked out with Obituary Back from the Dead at like 9, 10 years old because I went, oh, nice. Zombies. And that was the reason I bought it. And so I went from like Iron Maiden to death metal in like really young. And my guitar teacher was going, I've never met a kid who's into such heavy stuff at such a young age. And he wanted me to... I picked it up really fast. And he wanted me to do gradings and sort of learn the theory side of it. Right. But at like 10, I was like, I just want to play Maiden riffs and Slayer stuff and like Obituary stuff. So I stopped having lessons. In hindsight, that probably wasn't a great idea, but I said to my mum, look, I'm bored, he's teaching me stuff that I've got no interest in. Right. In hindsight, I would have seen the benefits of actually learning the proper way kind of thing rather than just sort of winging it myself. But yeah, so that was it really. I just kind of kept playing. I had a sort of stint. They bought me, I borrowed, it was a really cheap Les Paul from my uncle. And at 10, Les Paul was way too big. Like, it was a full thickness Les Paul, it wasn't like a small one. And I was too small to play something that big. So my dad bought me from Monkey Business in Bexley Heath, music shop.
Oh God, yeah.
Doghouse Music.
Doghouse.
Yeah, it was called Monkey Business before that, I think, or something like that. And he bought me a Mexican red Stratocaster, which is a fucking great guitar for a starter. And that was it. I had that for years. And I got out of sort of rock and metal around the age of 13. I got into hip hop for a little bit for a few years when I was rollerblading and skateboarding for a while. And then sort of about 15, I got back into it again. And that's when the never-ending spendage happened, when I just started buying stuff, trying new things, which I think we're a little bit not spoiled for choice now, but I think you look at like what they had back in the sort of 60s and 70s, guitar and equipment wise, very limited.
Yeah.
Now there's just an
unlimited. The market's just saturated with product.
It's so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I've kind of ironically come full circle where I was like, I don't like Gibson, I don't like Marshall. So I did everything possible to stay away. And then I got to a point, I started my first band I was in was called Headclamp with Fraser, the same drummer.
Yeah.
I was just a vocalist in that. The guitar player Rick was really good, really like heavily influenced by Lamb of God. You could tell by the way he played.
Nice groove.
Exactly. Yeah, and he was really, really good. And then that failed, and at the time we started Violation Complex, which was
back in the day.
The first proper band I was in, which is the first band I played guitar with. And I remember I was like, right, I'm in this band now. I need a proper amp because I had a Bandit 1x12, PV Bandit 1x12. And I thought, well, if we're going to be playing gigs, I'm going to need something better than that. So I went to Doghouse and I bought a Laney Hardcore Max stack, like half stack. It was a 4x12 overhead. And it was dog shit, really, in hindsight. But I loved it at the time because it was the first.
It was a half stack, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like me. My first proper amp was Marshall, that solid state MG100 thing.
Oh yeah.
Absolute piece of shit.
Yeah.
Hated it. But when I got home, I loved it. I could stop staring at it. I just Marshall half stack in my room, and I was just like, there's me like 16 years old. I got, I got half stack.
Well, it's the thing. I mean, I kind of look back and I've got some expensive gear now, and I kind of look back and think none of the stuff I previously was bad. So why have I gone on this weird journey of spending a fortune? But it's the never-ending kind of search, isn't it, for the tone
it really
you want.
is. I mean, even now you could be like, I'm happy with everything, and then it'll never end.
I tell you what, one thing I figured out, which I do now, is that I think your ears get bored. Your ears and your brain get bored of listening to the same thing.
Yeah.
So one of the things I made a conscious effort, I had a Diesel Hagen, I had a diesel 2x12 and a Diesel Hagen head, and I loved the sound. For what I was doing, that was in sort of the was it the Darkeye or Violation? I can't remember. It might be the end of the Violation days, and that was perfect for what I wanted at the time. And then what I noticed was I was getting a bit bored of the sound, and again you start thinking, oh, maybe I'll try something else, and I'll buy something else. So I bought a practice amp to just play in my bedroom. It was a Roland Q, and I played that probably 90% of the time. So when I plugged into the Diesel, I went, wow, that sounds amazing, and you don't get bored of it because I've been listening to the Roland Q for the last fortnight.
That makes sense.
Plug into this and go, oh yeah, now I remember why I like it so much, kind of thing. So I try to do that to stop myself from getting too bored, more so than anything else. But then again, I'm probably happier than I have been in a long time with the tone per se of what I'm doing. A couple of minor tweaks.
Yeah. Plus, also tone goes with like bands. I mean, I imagine if you start another band in another couple of years, you might want to find a new sound for that project as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I always kind of find it funny how I saw.
Yeah, tone and bands go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. I saw an interview with Paul Gilbert, and someone asked him what are your EQ settings, and he went, whatever venue I'm playing. And at the time I was like, well, that makes perfect sense because you play a venue and you go, oh, it's really boxy in this. You take some of the mids out to say it doesn't sound so boxy. You can't have the same EQ setting. It won't sound the same in every venue that you play just by dint of the venue. And then by the time the sound man's put a mic in front, run it through his desk and it comes out speakers, it doesn't sound anything like what you're playing through. No. And that was something that kind of, when he said that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So don't worry about it too much. You just kind of like the general sound of what you've got, I think.
Yeah.
And then adjust I tend to keep everything at 12 apart from the mids. I piss the mids a little bit, which I never used to do. Nick used to call me the anti-mid messiah, Nick Sampson, because I used my Laney, I took all the mids out of that, and then I put an EQ pedal in there, and I took all the mids out again. And it sounded like shit. When I listen back to them old records, I'm like, that's terrible.
How did you end up doing vocals at the same time as everything?
I must have been about 17 when I was like, I want to join a band. Like, I've been into music my whole life, I play guitar, blah, blah, blah. And I responded to an ad on formingbands.co.uk. I don't know if that's still going or not.
That's an old...
Yeah, that's the first... I met this guy and he was like, I want to form a band, big sound, kind of Mastodon. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, it's not what I'm into at the moment, but yeah, that's cool. And then we met up with him, and Al, who turned out to be the guitar player for Violation Complex, turned up and replied to the same ad. And me and him hit it off pretty quickly. And we was jamming with this guy, and it was all going quite well. And I was like, I've got some vocal ideas. I have no idea what I'm doing with it, but we'll give it a try. And then we tried it, and yeah, the bass player was like, yeah, I'm really enjoying it, cool. And then I never saw him again. Like, he didn't reply to the messages. I thought, why not? So I messaged Al, and I was like, look, I quite enjoyed the other day. Do you want to carry on? And Al was a really good guitar player. Like, I learned earlier on when I started to play guitar, I was rubbish with my left hand. Like, I'm left-handed and I play right-handed. I don't know why. It's just
I know a couple of people that do that.
Yeah, and I was rubbish with it. So, but I figured out I could triple pick really fast. So I was like, Fear Factory all the way. That's what I can do. Great. So we started a band. Yeah, me and Al started a band together. And I was like, well, we both do vocals. You know, it's always good to have different flavours of everything, really. Yeah. And we started trying to do vocals and tried different ideas, and one day I sort of just shouted as loud as I physically could. I was like, I didn't know I could do that, and lost my voice almost instantly. I was like, but I quite like how that sounded, so I now just have to figure out how to do that without losing my voice. Yeah. And there is no, I've done a lot of research in the last 6 months since getting back into writing vocal ideas, and we're getting ready to record vocals. A lot of research into warming up, techniques, and all that kind of thing, and there is no secret other than practice with vocals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do a lot of main vocals, I do a lot of backing vocals, but when I first had to do it was in my old band where they was like, we need to add backing vocals. I was like, well, none of us can do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to step up and be like, okay, so I had to learn, and I was already listening to a lot of heavier stuff than I was playing at the time, so I was listening to a lot of Whitechapel.
Yeah.
So I thought, if I could just do that, just imitate that, I'll be okay for a backing vocalist.
The thing is, there are ways of doing it that have almost no effect on your vocal cords at all. It's all technique. Yeah. If you get it wrong though, you're screwed. Like I've heard of people losing their voice almost completely on the first try, and it's like any extreme form of anything. If you get it wrong, you can have quite massive consequences.
I mean, I always hate when I have a lot of people in my life that don't listen about like work colleagues and stuff like that, and then they hear what I'm listening to. I always hate that conversation where they're just going, does that not hurt his voice? And I'm just like, it's still singing, you moron. It's still a vocal technique. It's still a style. I could do my vocals all day now. And I can still talk like this at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't affect me now at all because I kind of learned how to do what I needed to do without hurting myself. I hate that conversation all the time.
I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, when we was in Violation Complex, I used to work with a guy who was a proper reggae man. He was from Jamaica, and he liked this guy called Buju Banton. I'd never heard of him. He was like in Jamaica, he's like the dude. Like, he's huge, and he used to play me all this reggae stuff. And I played him Skindred, and he was like, "This is fucking cool." He said he's using rock lyrics sung in a Jamaican style, and I was like, I can't understand what he's saying, but fine. He really enjoyed it. I was like, come to one of our gigs as a joke. He was like, yeah, go on in. And he turned up and we played in the car. I went, what do you think? He went, you know what? He said, I don't like it. He said, but I can appreciate seeing it live, how much you've clearly practiced to get to where you are.
It's what a lot of people, I've had people come to my gigs and say the same thing. People that aren't into it, but they've come along anyway. And they said the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, they can appreciate the art when they see it.
Yeah.
To listen to it, they're just like, no, don't like it, put it away. But when they see it, it's a different experience.
Well, I think with metal, and I think this probably goes for most types of music as well, but I think metal loses a lot on recordings that you get live.
Oh yeah.
Like there's a band called Boskiloid from up north. They've just got the most monstrous sound live. I mean, the vocalist is awesome. The guitar is just this huge bellowing sound, and it never translates properly onto. I mean, it sounds great on record. Like when you listen to it, you think that sounds fucking great. They're good songs. But it's nothing compared to when you see it live. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people, you listen to it and go, oh, that's just angry noise. And you see it live and you can see people actually playing it. You can tell, like you said in your podcast the other day, is that when you watch, if you can't play the guitar, if you watch someone play anything, you think, wow, that's amazing. And then you see someone who's substantially better than you, think, wow, that's incredible. Like I saw Opeth at the Roundhouse, and I was like, I'm just going to give up. Because they're so good, like supernaturally talented as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Ackerfeld's probably one of the best singers, growlers, rhythm guitar players. He's like the whole package.
But he doesn't growl anymore.
No, I know, which is a bit because he was so good at it.
He was. I saw Opeth support Dream Theater. I think 2009, and that was the first time I knew of Opeth for a while. And you'd think being a Dream Theater fan, I would have known of them a lot earlier. But that was actually the first time I'd heard them or seen them. And I was so impressed with the growls, man.
Oh, it's awesome.
He even came on during a Dream Theater song and growled.
Yeah,
it sounded so good.
Yeah.
So I understand the argument where people say, why aren't you doing that anymore?
Well, because he was the best, quite literally.
Yeah,
probably
so good at it.
One of the best in the business at the death metal guttural growls. And he always said, and I think he's probably got one of the best voices as well, like singing voices. And he always said in interviews, like his voice, it's really, he called it economical, like there's no effort into his growls. He's not really pushing hard. Yeah. There's a way of getting that sound without putting much effort in, which is why he could also sing consistently as well.
A lot of like the facial expressions is just what people are putting on. You don't need to make those sort of angry expressions to push the vocals.
It adds to the show, doesn't it?
It's like Devin Townsend. His fry vocals are absolutely on point.
Yeah.
They're incredible. He doesn't need to pull the faces.
No.
He just does it because it's part of the emotion.
I think, obviously, I'm not a huge fan of what he's doing recently in the last few years. But his early stuff, like whilst he was doing strapping, like Terry Orchestra, the Devin Townsend project and the Devin Townsend stuff, I thought was incredible. And I think he's probably the best frontman in the business.
Oh, he's so like charismatic,
animated.
He's
just the best at entertaining people. Not as only is he an amazing singer, and I think he's pretty underrated as a guitar player as well, because he's really good.
He underrates himself. I went to his guitar clinic last year, and his guitar clinic was just an hour and a half of him talking. He wasn't really playing or demonstrating the guitar. He was just kind of holding the guitar and just kind of fiddling. Yeah. And he was talking about how while he was playing, like if he plays something he likes while he's talking, he'll just, that's a nice little chord. Yeah. I'll remember that for later. And he showed the audience on his phone. He's just got a folder on his phone with just tons of recordings of just little ideas. Even if he's walking down the street with an idea for a riff in his head, he ain't got a guitar, he'll just go, and he'll do that. But he's a super nice guy as well, because we all queued up for a little handshake and a meet and greet with him after the clinic, and he had time for everyone. So I thought I just wanted to throw a quick thing in there that like a friend of mine who's no longer with us was a big fan of his, and like he got me into him, etc., and that Devin was a big influence on his guitar playing, like when he was still with us. And so I said to Devin, I was like, you may not rate yourself as a guitar player on your own, but you should know that you inspire so many people with your guitar playing. You don't.
Absolutely.
I think maybe Devin Townsend's a little bit too hung up on the fact that he's not technically gifted, like he's not a shredder. Whereas he's trying to play guitar in a world full of shredders at the moment. Because he can't do that. He's like, maybe I'm not as good, but I'm like, no, you're just as good in other ways.
In his own way,
like,
definitely.
But he's such a nice guy. I had about 30 people behind me at that meeting. And I couldn't shut him up. I was trying to walk away from him after a while, because I was like, these people are behind me. And he's just like, no, tell me more. And I'm like, well, I was in this band. All right, well, let's come on to where we've come today with your equipment. Let's start with the guitar that you've brought with you.
Right. So. This is probably going to upset quite a few people.
Yep. I know a couple of people in particular it will.
It's a 2019 Gibson Les Paul Custom.
You hear that, Pete?
Yeah, and it's what they call it's called smoke finish, satin smoke burst finish or something like that. They didn't look like this when I got it, that's for sure.
No,
brand new. I like a minimalist. I actually contacted the guy at Guitar in Epsom, a guy called Luke, who's an absolute diamond of a bloke. I contacted him and said, can you do me a quote for a custom shop, single pickup Les Paul in grey satin finish? And he was like, that's going to be expensive. He said, anything that's not, because obviously they use CNC machines. So they'll go, two pickups a day, and they'll CNC this all day long. So if you say you want something that's not standard, the price just rockets. Because you would think, well, they've got less to do, but then they have to reprogram the CNC machine. So when I saw this in the shop, I was like, oh, that's as close as I'm going to get to what I wanted. So I'm kind of making what I wanted after buying this. I got a really good deal on it, and it wasn't. I ummed and ahed about it for ages, and I was in the shop, and I had one of the new 1950s standards, which has got the 1950s profile neck on it, which is a fucking incredible guitar, and another one, and I was umming and ahhing, and they gave me such a good deal on this that it landed up like it was like only a couple of £100 between the price, and this is a full-blown custom shop, because they couldn't sell it, because Gibson owners and same with Fender and PRS are generally the most anal people alive. And if it's not a black gold hardware with the binding showing Les Paul Custom, no one's interested, or a white Alpine white like the Randy Rhoads used to play. So they just couldn't get rid of it. So they gave me a really good price. And I had this and I had the other two. I was like, I was umming and ahhing, and I was like, this was marginally better than the standard. And I thought, is it worth the extra money? And then I was talking to the guy who works in it, who's actually a guitarist for a funeral for a friend.
Oh, cool.
And he was like, he said in 6 months, and he pointed at the standard, he said in 6 months you were going to see hundreds of them up for sale on eBay. He said, you are never going to see this again. So that's a really good point, actually. He said, unless you get a one-off custom shop made, he said, the fact that I think they only made 2 in this colour, or 2 or 3 in this colour, they kind of went on a bit of a wobbler and made loads of random colours and finishes that nobody wanted and couldn't sell them, which is why I got it for such a good price. And the guy who now runs Gibson went to Guitar, and they went, oh, we've got all these guitars, do you want to buy them at next to nothing, which is why they were so cheap. I mean, this book ticket price, I think they go for about 3.5, the Les Paul Custom Shop Customs. Right. And I got this for 2.2, brand new. So it was at 2.5, so £1,000 off. And I was having an RN to Luke, and he was like, I'll do it for 2.2. And I was like, you know, it's only marginally more expensive than the standard, and like you said, you were never going to see another one. And then I kind of started brutalising it, so I ripped all the electronics out. I filled the holes in with these like sticky pad things that you put on the bottom of chairs, because I noticed, and I didn't filled in, and I started playing it. I was like, sounds really open now, because I had so much like the cavity was open, these were all open. It sounded like a semi-hollow, and I thought, well, that could be quite cool. So I started playing it, and it just had this really almost single coil-esque top end that I didn't like. I loved it for clean, it sounded really cool, but when I sort of went into my high gain sound, it was just too bright for my taste. So I blocked all these off first, and I was like, I'll see how that goes, and I might just leave this open. I thought, yeah, okay, it made a difference, not enough of a difference. I want it to be, you know, as a Les Paul sounds. Yeah. So Stonewolf Guitars, Mikey, I messaged him and said, can you make me a lump of wood to just block off? And he was like, yeah, sure. Made it. I went and picked it up off him at the guitar show last week, and I had to do a bit of sanding and jiggery pokery to get in, and I literally forced it in with a hammer. That's why I remember. That's why the hammer was in my pedal.
That's why the hammer.
And I was like, ah. So I was like, should I glue it? And I thought that ain't never coming in. Like I had to properly hit it to get it in there. And then I've started, like, one thing I don't get. I mean, I kind of like it. It's got a bit of a ghost vibe to it, but it's got the triple binding around everything, like you do on a normal Les Paul Custom. But they sprayed it. I thought, what's the fucking point of doing that? You might as well not put it on there. Just if you're going to spray it. So I got a bit of sanding paper and I started sanding it all off. Just as I'm like, I wonder, because I thought it was black binding at first. Because here I was like, oh, it's just black and grey binding to match the body. Yeah. And then I accidentally, where was it? It was here. I accidentally caught a bit. I was like, oh, it's actually white.
So
So they've just sprayed the whole thing, which I don't understand why. It's just a lot of work to just cover something up. So yeah, I started saying, so my plan is, when I've got time, I'm going to sand this flush, sand everything back, and then spray it like a gunmetal grey, satin gunmetal grey. But I am going to mask off the binding, because I like the look of it. Yeah. I quite like the way it stands out. That's kind of the point. The other thing, so yeah, anyone who's really into sort of Les Paul Customs is probably going to cry whilst watching this with what I've done to it. But I kind of think it's my guitar. I do what I fucking like with it. Do you know what I mean?
We'll get some close-up shots of this as well.
Yeah, I also like. There's a guy called Jared Nichols who's just released an Epiphone, and he's got the single pickup, and I very nearly bought that. It's got a monstrous baseball neck on it, and I don't like. I wasn't a fan of that, and it's got a P90, which I quite like the sound of P90s for certain things, but it was a proper P90, so I can't replace a humbucker. I'd have to route out and pick up. I tried a P90 size humbucker in this, and it just didn't work. I had a Silverburst Les Paul Custom a few years back. I love the Silverburst. Being a huge Tool fan and like Mastodon fan, it came up for sale. I was like, I'm having that, and that sounded amazing with a P90 in it. I don't know why this one doesn't, but I stick it in this, and it was just a little bit too clangy for my taste. The other one sounded great. I don't know why. Now this sounds like I want it to because it's filled out that gap. It's got rid of all that sort of top end. But one thing we spoke about before, and this is where other Gibson snobs get on my nerves. This has got a Richlight fretboard, which is a composite material. They basically get paper, smash it into pieces, and glue it together. It's kind of like, yeah. So the concept is that it looks, sounds, and feels just like ebony, which and before anyone starts freaking out.
I was going to ask that when I saw it. I was like, ebony fretboard.
Yeah. Before anyone starts freaking out and say, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. Because I've got a 1990 Les Paul Custom in Honeyburst finish with a proper ebony fretboard. Yeah. And I would argue this feels nicer. Well, because there's no grain.
Yeah, this is an ebony fretboard here. So it's,
I mean, if you look, there's no grain with Richlight. No. I mean, look, you can see a very small amount of grain. With Richlight, there's nothing. It's smooth. So you can get it as smooth as you like. And there is just some people that are like, oh, it's not wood, so I don't like it. The fact that, I think the simple fact of the matter is the way things are going is one day there is going to be no wood to use. So,
well, you've already got those like Aristides guitars. That's not wood. I can't remember what it's actually made of, but like they're not wood, and people are buying them left, right, and centre. Those guitars are blowing up at the moment.
Yeah,
and people are buying them because they're not made of wood.
Yeah, I think the fundamental tone comes from between the bridge and the nut, which is just the neck. So most of it resonates with the neck, which is I think why Les Pauls always sound a little bit.
Mahogany is quite a heavy wood, isn't it? It's always very bassy.
Well, maple's denser and heavier. Mahogany is actually not as dense, which is why it sounds darker. Because it's some of the frequencies it soaks up in the wood, a lot of the bright frequencies. So they did. I mean, I saw a video of Rabia Masad, and he was saying that in every recording he does, they use a Les Paul as a thickener, and I think it's because of the size of the neck, you just get this beefier tone than you would. Not necessarily as articulate as like a Fender.
So he's double tracking with like two different guitars. Basically.
Yeah, they kind of use it. He said he uses a Les Paul as a thickener to go. Well, you've got the nice sort of aggressive attack from something else.
Yeah, I think he uses Chapman guitars.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they get some nice sort of aggressive attack from them, but we need something else to beef it up a little bit. And he said Les Paul does that better than anything else.
Right. Well, I mean, you mentioned like how you were anti-Gibson and anti-Marshall for a while. So how did you end up buying them? Like Gibson? How did you?
This was me eating a massive piece of humble pie more than anything else. And I said, do you know what it was? It started with all right. I'm going to quickly read off the list of amps that I've had, very quickly, because this will give you an idea of the journey that I've been on. Now that's my lyrics. Yeah, here we go. Amps. Laney HMC 100, PV Bandit 112, PV 6505, Messer Single Rectifier, Messer F50, Engel Fireball, Engel Powerball, Hughes Killer Core Bogner Alchemist, an Axe Effects, a Kemper, two Diesel Hagens, a Diesel D-Mel, Rockerverb Mark 350 watt and a TH30, Egnator Armageddon, JCM 2000 DSM50 and a Silver Jubilee. They're the heads that I can remember, right? And then the guitars, loads of them as well. And I was always kind of like, and it wasn't like I was anti-Gibson and anti-Marshall or anything like that. It was more a case of, I want to do something different and try and deliberately be a little bit more different. And at the time, it was working for me. And then I sort of, a few years ago when Darkeye was still going, and I sort of thought, you know what, I've been playing 7 strings for years because I really liked having the standard E tuning for like playing, not that I know many riffs of anyone else's stuff, but playing like Opeth playing standard tuning mostly a lot of the time, but I still love the low A of like Fear Factory, early like Mastodon and stuff like that. So I kind of, that's why I went 7 strings. I was playing them for years, and then I was at home one day and I thought I'm just going to play through the set because we had a gig that we were practicing for, and I realised it didn't actually use the high E once in our entire set. So I thought, well, that's fucking irrelevant then, isn't it? So I thought, well, for the simple fact that with 7 strings, there's less choice in guitars, less choice in strings, less choice in pickups, I might as well go back to 6 strings. And it's, you know, detuning a 6-string guitar isn't rocket science. It's been done for decades.
Yeah, I mean, I can see this. We'll zoom in on it, but like, obviously, I can see you've got 4 wound strings on yours. So obviously, that's already indicating to me a low tuning. So what tuning are you in at the moment?
This is A. Because basically, what I did, I bought. And part of the other journey to where I am at the moment, so I was like, right, I'm going to go for 6 strings. I'm going to go back to that after years of 7s. I had LTDs, I had a few Sigary 7 strings, I had PRS SE 7 strings, which was an awesome guitar. And when I decided to go back, I thought, you know what, I'm going to, as I'm making this journey back to six string, I'm going to try something different. And then I thought, rather than buying with my eyes, because that's what most people do, they go, oh, that looks really cool, I'll try that. And you either convince yourself it's good because it looks nice. I thought, I'm going to buy it with what I hear, and not in the context of I'm just going to play all the guitars, close my eyes and see what sounds the best. I looked at all of the guitarists that I either admired or the albums that I liked the tone of, and looked at what they were using, and they were almost all Les Pauls with Marshalls, exclusively. The first one,
Gibson and Marshall go hand in hand.
Yeah, well, this is the thing.
So good.
This is
gel so
yeah. I mean, this is the thing. The first one, my favourite album of all time, is A Perfect Circle, Murder Novels. Since the day it came out, I remember when it came out, I was like 14 years old, 15 years old. I heard Judith, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And it was literally like a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
And it's been my favourite song ever since. And Billy Howardell from A Perfect Circle uses a Les Paul Standard with an old. It's a JTM. It's an old Marshall. It's not. I don't know a lot about older Marshalls, but it's an older Marshall, and I like the sound of it. I thought that sounds cool. I thought, right, okay, who's next? And I thought Ackerfeld doesn't use Les Pauls, but uses a single cut PRS, similar sort of vibe, and uses Marshall JVM 410s. I thought, who's next? And then Fraser, my drummer, asked me like, who's your favourite guitar player? I was like, Bill Keller from Mastodon, probably. Of all the players, because he's a riff man. He's not, and I'm not a lead player, and he plays very, very little lead in Mastodon. He's more the sort of meat and potatoes of it, and Brent's the kind of sort of the shreddy dude. I was like, what's he using? Les Paul Customs and a JCM 800. I was like, right, well, that's the direction I need to have a look at. And I'd played Gibsons before, and I was like, I don't like it. And I don't know if that was a bit of me going, no, I don't like it because that's what everyone else does. I said, a Gibson Les Paul with a Marshall is not a unique combination, far from it, but it just works.
They do, they absolutely work. I mean, that was like my first light bulb moment. Before I even knew much about tone, I remember hearing it's not as heavy as you mentioned, but when I first heard The Darkness, Permission to Love.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Before I'd even seen a music video, I heard the album and I was like, that is a Gibson through a Marshall.
Oh,
you could just tell.
It's an unmistakable sound. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
same like Gary Moore and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, you sort of look at, I looked at all the sort of amps that people that I like use, and when you look at, like the JCM 800 has been, I would think the JCM 800 and the PV 5150 have been the two amps that have defined metal. Yeah. Really, when you look at not necessarily who uses them, but what they've used in the studio, almost always there's a JCM 800 involved with a tube screamer in front of it. Yeah. And same with 5150 with a tube screamer in front of it, or whatever you want to do with that.
Even my profile on my Kemper over there is based on the 5150.
Yeah.
So it was just a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer.
So go for all the profiles, all the diesel sort of patches on there, all the Marshalls, I was landed on that 5150 every time. It
just works. As annoying as it is, it just works. I mean, guitarists are kind of a bit finicky in their own right, where they, again, what we were talking about with like the Rich Strike Friend, they don't like change. There is only so much you can do with some wood and some strings and a bit of hardware, really. I think the Evertune bridge,
it's like natural progression, isn't it? Like once you've reached the pinnacle with one thing, it's just you move on to
where
the next.
Do you go from there? Yeah,
it's just like, right, we've done all we can with wood, let's find new materials. One of my previous guests on his episode, his neck was carbon fibre. It was 90% carbon fibre.
Was that the Vizier?
Yeah, the neck was all carbon fibre, but it's just a thin outer bit that was wood, just for the feel. It wasn't only there purely for the feel. That was it. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I must admit, I've never played a Vizier guitar, but I've heard a few people properly rave on about them.
I had a play after the podcast. It was a pretty nice guitar. Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's move down the cable into what we're plugging into. Let's talk about the pedal boards.
Right. Again, I've had Axe Effects, I've had Kemper, I've had Multi Effects, and I kind of went back to let's just get some really nice pedals. Like I bought obviously you've got the Kemper over there. I had an Axe Effects, the first one, and I think the thing that I'm not a tech dude at all. Like I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me, and I must have used not even 2% of its capabilities, and I thought it's pointless me having this because it needs to go to someone who's going to use it for what it can be used for. Same with the Kemper really. So I thought, right, so I bought the Boss. I originally bought the Boss ES5, the switcher, because it controls absolutely everything: the amp, the pedals, the lot. And it's one of the things that sold me on it is I had a gig in Camden, I went to Guitar during the day, and I was like, I want to try this, and within 5 minutes, I knew how to use it. And I'm not tech-minded at all. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm not like super into this. I mean, like, especially in like early days of playing guitar, like pedal boards like this used to intimidate the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
I used to look at that and used to go, nope.
Yeah, but these are so easy. I mean, for instance, the viewers can't see this obviously, but
we'll get some close-up shots.
Yeah, so like patch 1, if you go on that tells me that patch 1 pedal 2's on. So if I go right, I want to add that one in. You do that, right, done. That's it.
Excellent.
So then you switch to that. You go that. 1 and 5's on. Cool. I go back to 1, and they're both still on. That's it. That's how easy it is.
Nice and easy.
That's why I bought it, because I thought it's so easy. And then if you want to change, I can't turn that one off. Like the switching the amp effects, you just sort of go into edit. No, it's not that one. Sorry, exit. So display until you get to that one. Control 1, Control 2. You just do it on and off. Done. That's it, and that's how you switch the amp. And that's one of the reasons I bought it. The other thing, because it's got 8 presets on the front, I don't have to go up and down the banks.
Cool.
I've got 8 sounds. I've only got sort of 5 to 6 sounds.
So when you're playing live, you're not actually hitting the pedals themselves?
No, I just go
pretty cool.
that. I'll do a quick look at sort of like how I've roughly got it set up.
Yeah, but
So like one is my clean tone, which I believe, if I remember rightly, I've got the Earthquaker Devices Dispatch Master, which is I'd say is my favourite pedal of all time. So it's we're gonna get any sound. That's just a really nice delay reverb.
Yeah.
Number 2 is my swells sound, which has got the Walrus Audio Fathom, and I think it's that as well, the slow, Walrus Audio Slow. So I use this for a lot of. Intros to the songs that I've used that on.
Very ambient.
Yeah, I got that idea. There was a band that a guy I know called Jim from back with Sumo, really good. And he posted this thing by a band called Jacob from I think they're from New Zealand, and they're like this post rock ambient band, and the guy's skill with his volume is just insane. And he uses he's got so much reverb, and all of their songs sound like that. They're just constant layers upon layers upon layers of sound and ambience. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Like how much sound they can create. They're a 3-piece, so how much sound he can create with that, with just himself and a few pedals, would really impress me. So I kind of went, I'd like to do something along them lines. So that's why I ended up doing that, and get the volume pedal, just because I'm not very good at doing it that quickly like he is. 3 is the lead channel on the Marshall one, and I use this little volume boost, but it's sort of unity is there, and I just back it off a little bit so that's just like what I use for like a light crunch.
Yeah.
That's what it moves every time I get it out of the box, but that's another thing I like about the Marshall is it reacts really well to how much input you put in.
Yeah.
So that's with the volume pedal at, what's that, 9 o'clock? So it's like, if I put it on 3, and that's just how much input you're putting in, so I really like about it.
That's just one little tiny thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Completely changed.
So you can do a lot with not much, which is what I like. And the Marshalls seem to react.
Responsive.
Yeah, they react better with pedals than any other amp I've tried. So that's like my light crunch sound. I've got that with just a little. I mean, that's like a house brand for Digital Village in Romford, and the music store in Germany. It's like a house band, and I wanted a cheap delay pedal. So I just want it to be a delay. I don't really care about the sort of characteristics, and that was like 15 quid or something, and it does the job perfectly. So I got that. 5 is the kind of main heavy tone, which I use. I did have a full tone Ocd Overdrive, which is a great pedal.
Yeah.
And then I played this in Digital Village, and this just pissed all over it, I'll be honest. I mean, it doesn't sound, the OCD sounds great, but this for me was like a light bulb moment. And what I like about it is it's got two stages of gain. So you've got level, your sustain is like your gain, and then you've got high cut, low cut. The stage 2 is, I looked it up on the website, and like it's a different clipping to the other one, so it actually sounds different. And what I like about it, you watch when I play, the light comes on and off, so the harder you dig in, the more gain it gives you.
Oh, sweet.
So if you play sort of, and you see it coming in and out, so the harder you dig, the more of that type of gain it gives you, which I thought was really cool. So there, that's that. I don't know what these ones. I don't really. I think this is this little. That's another lot of reverb and delay, and I don't really use 7 and 8. So it just, all it means is when I decided to get something along these lines was doing vocals as well as playing guitar, and wanting to have got a lot of sounds at my disposal. I can't tap dance. I'm like, well, if I want my swell sound, I need to go change the amp channel, hit that one on, play, then turn them two off, change the channel and hit something else. So I was like, whilst singing and playing as well. So I was like, well, I need something that does all of that for me without much, and without me sort of learning how to walk again, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm not much of a tap dancer on stage either, because I Caribbean stuff is quite technical, so if I'm busy with my feet, my hands just go completely fucking doolally.
Absolutely.
So with my camera it's a bit different, but I've got all my patches. Each patch has everything I need.
Yeah.
So I can just press one button and I know the next patch that I'm clicking on is just got everything I need in the next class, because I'm the same. Yeah. When I see people on stage like doing this, I'm like, how are you doing that?
I mean, some people have learned that
that's another skill in itself.
Yeah. But I think that's it. I wanted as little effort with maximum choice. I had the ES5, which is a smaller version of the ES8, and I kind of run out of space. I was like, well, I need to upgrade then. So I bought the ES8, and I'm pretty much, well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pedals. Yeah, 6 pedals. So I've got 2 spaces left, but I can't actually see there being a time when I'd need any more than this. I don't really use wah. I don't use fuzz. Do you know, I've tried, like I've had a couple of fuzz pedals, and I just don't know what to do with them. Like, I'll play it and I go, oh, that sounds cool, but it doesn't really suit how I play. And when I try and play any of the riffs that I've come up with for Nautilus with a fuzz pedal, it just sounds like shit. So I just think I'm not going to bother. But maybe in the future I'll figure out a way to do something with it.
Or you might write something that you'll think that could maybe...
I think that's what I need to do, is if I ever want to use a fuzz, is look at it in a completely new aspect. And start from scratch effectively. So yeah, I love the Walrus Audio pedals, are awesome. And I was going to get a tube screamer, like an Ibanez tube screamer, to push the front end of the Marshall, but again, trying to be a little bit different, because that's not a new thing. It's been done for decades as well. And I tried a few, and that for me I've got the OCD still at home, full tone OCD. That's another full tone pedal, and I just kept switching between the two, and that won the war between the two. The OCD is an amazing pedal, and it had its own sound, but that for me sort of won between the two of them. I've had a few others. I've got a little MXR Boost, which again, interestingly, there's another YouTube video show, a podcast called The Pedal Guys, I think they're called.
Oh yeah, I know that.
And they said something that's absolutely true, is that no pedal has its own sound. It depends what amp you put it through.
Yep.
Which at first I was like, oh, that's crap, but it's not. It's true. I bought a little MXR booster, which is Echoplex and a microamp in one. They're two sort of Echoplexes. They're famous booster. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I know that a lot of old school guitarists used it to boost the Marshall. And then their microamp is another really successful clean boost. They put it into this tiny little package. I thought, well, that's really cool. So I bought one. Put it through my orange Rockever, which I had before that. It sounded like shit. I was like, that sounds fucking terrible. Put it through this. Wow, sounds great. Not quite what I'm after, which is why I've still got the plimsoll on now, not that. But that's when I was like, oh, okay, so they really do depend on what amp you put it through as to how it sounds and how it works. And again, there's like a never-ending. What I tend to do with this is I keep the input gain at midday, because I find that to be kind of the nice balance between the clean, the high gain, and then push with that. I get that. Use that to get it to the super high, chunky stuff that I want to do. But without that, so with it, it's kind of raw, a little bit edgy.
Yep.
If you take it off, it's still there, and that just sort of pushes it. I don't really want to go too far.
Takes a little bit of the crunch.
Just adds a bit of yeah. I find the stage 2 gain on it adds a bit of meat and thickness to it, and it just kind of takes what you've already got and goes, ugh, is a little bit more, sort of thing. Which is why I tried to stay away from overdrive pedals to start with, because I thought, well, I really like how it sounds, and a lot of overdrive pedals that I've tried colour a little bit more than I was happy with. So that's why I tried the sort of micro amps and the clean boosts and the exotic EP boost, which is another really good pedal. It takes what you've got and just gives it more, and that kind of gave me a little bit more variation, sort of willingness to try. So it worked out quite well. But yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Marshall that you brought with you today. So
yeah.
Again, how did you end up landing on a Marshall? Because obviously that's a Silver Jubilee, yes?
Yeah, it's the reissue. It's not the original. They came out in 1987 for like 1 year. And I always thought, it's 2550. I always thought that was regards to the wattage. It's not. No. It's because 25 years is a Silver Jubilee, is it not?
Yes.
And 50 was Jim Marshall's age at the time of release. So that was his 50th birthday and 25 years of Marshall amps.
Oh, okay.
That's why they released it. And then, like, I know Slash is a big fan of the Silver Jubilee. This was another. I picked up that JCM 2000 DSL 50 and I loved it. I thought, pound for pound, money wise, it sounded awesome. Probably got one of the better cleans of all Marshalls, I think. I mean, Marshalls aren't known for having a great clean channel. If you want good clean, you buy a Fender. It's just the way it works. But they had a really good clean for what it was. And again, it was like, so that's the tone I've been aiming for, like with the Marshalls and stuff. And then, where was I? I was in PMT in Romford. And I was like, oh, you've got a Silver Jubilee. And I don't know why I thought that, because I'd never noticed it before. I was like, no, I did it for JCM 800, but the problem with JCM 800 is you have to crank them to an obscene level to get the Marshall sound out of it. Whereas because this is 2 channels, and it's got its own independent volume for the high gain channel, you can crank it and then bring in as much as that as you want, and it works really well. And I was like, oh, let's play that. And as soon as I played it, I was like, right, that's the one. That's what I've been trying to find for years. Even without like pedals or anything, I was just like, it sounds thick. It's got a lot of presence, so it cuts through really well. Just sounds really broad and big to me. So I bought it, and it was a B stock. It blew up within 24 hours. So I took it back. I was like, it just lost all volume. It was like I had the volume on nothing, and I could just about hear it. So I took it back. I was like, look, it's gone. It's dead. And the good people at PMT took it back, took it to a repair shop, got it repaired. I don't know what was wrong with it. Got it back, and it worked.
Yeah, they got that stuff. I had my JVM popped while I was playing it a couple of years ago, and literally just while I was playing, honestly like a pop, like a fucking bottle had like exploded.
Yeah.
Into it, and I was like, oh, no sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the guys at PMT Romford fixed it.
Is that where you bought it from?
And I didn't buy it from there, no, but I knew they had a good repair centre, so I got
Right.
a friend that works there, so
Right.
Matthew Speed, do you know him?
Oh yeah, Matthew. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hit him up straight away. I was like, dude, Marshall's broken. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah, bring it in. We'll sort it out.
Yeah. I mean, he really sorted me out, and then I got it back. I was like, yeah, great, back on track.
Quick with their turnaround as well.
Yes.
Especially me, I done it around Christmas, and they still got it there and back again. I was like, sweet.
Yeah,
So,
they are pretty good service-wise. So yeah, I got this back. A week later, same thing, pop.
oh god.
Volume drops, and I was like, do you know what? Fuck them. And I thought I went for a proper sort of screw Marshall. I'm not happy, which is ridiculous. I thought I love the sound of it, but what's the point if it's going to blow up every week? So I took it back, and I was like, what do you want to do? Do you want to get? I said, no, I'm done. Like, I've never had an amp ever break down on me once. And this is twice in a fortnight. And I was like, let me have a look around, and I played the orange Rockaverb Mark III 50, the 50 watt version of Pete's Head. I was like, that sounds really cool. I was like, it doesn't sound as good as the Marshall in my opinion, but it's an undeniably great amp. So I was like, I'll tell you what would you do? And they did a really good deal on on that orange. I was like, I'll take that, part exchange, send that, but take that, give me my money back for that. I paid an extra few £100 and I got the orange, brilliant. And that really nice, clean, really loud. Oranges are so loud, really loud, big, thick, chunky gain. And I was playing it, and I bought a couple of pedals to try and sort of get it how I wanted it to. And whilst it sounded great, it just never quite got where I wanted it to be. And I think I was trying to make it sound like one of these when it just wasn't, and it just weren't going to happen. So, and I had an absolute fucking bargain on this, like sale of a lifetime kind of deal.
Okay.
I was like, right, I've decided I love the orange, but it's not what I want, so I'm not going to compromise. I'm just going to go and find one of these. These usually come up for the reissues. I've seen a couple of them go for £700 on eBay, which is, I think, is a fair price. You know, it's like anything. If it's not the original, some people aren't interested, which is a bit mad, but that's the way it is. And then I saw one on Gumtree, this one, and it was up for $750, but the full stack, 2 4x12s in the head, and I was like, man, that's cheap for that. And I messaged him, and I was like, why has he still got it? Like, why is it not sold? It's because he didn't want to sell it without the cabs. Nobody wanted the cabs.
I mean, so you mentioned as well that you've had a lot of amps over the years. So
yes.
Like, do you reckon this is like this one's going to stay for a while, or do you reckon maybe one day?
Yes. I won't get rid of this just by dint that I paid £250 for it effectively. So it'll be. I mean, if unfortunately if I ever come into sort of financial problems, then
it's an investment.
Yeah, I can. I'm easily going to make my money back.
It's a reminder of how you robbed the world.
yeah, and like it's the first time I've been properly like, every time I turn it on, I go, I like that. That sounds good. Every time. And like I said, like I listed off the amps that I've had earlier on, and they've all been really. I haven't had an amp that I thought was crap. They've all been good in their own way. Like, I love the diesels. The diesels have got a very, very, I wouldn't say unique, but I know it's a diesel. Yeah. Like, the first time I played for a VH4, I go, so that's where Tall gets this. That's where Adam Jones gets his tone from. It's very obvious it was a diesel VH4. And I love the Hagen. I had 2 of them in the end. That was a great amp. Like I said to you earlier on, I had that Driftwood Purple Nightmare 100 watt, which I actually believe, pound for pound, is the best amp I've ever owned. Through all of the features make sense. They all work. He's built a tube screamer into it that you can switch, and it sounds like an Ibanez tube screamer. It's brilliant. And just like everything, there's always when you get an amp with a lot of stuff in it, you go like, oh, that's not quite as good as it could be. This thing worked perfectly out of the box. It was brilliant.
But like you said, it's the best amp you've ever owned, but it might not be doing what you wanted it to do.
But yeah, I mean like we said earlier on, playing in a live scenario is very different from playing at home. Yeah. And
it takes years to find your live sound.
Of course it does. Yeah. I always think that if you're happy with your live sound, you just have to hope that what the crowd are hearing the same thing as you are.
I mean, I've been gigging now myself for like 10 years, and I'm only just starting to find. I'm only just being happy with how I'm sounding live.
Yeah. I think one thing that we've done that has benefited us, I mean, we played our first gig as Nautilus a couple of months ago, and it was a tragic mess in my opinion, because I forgot most of the lyrics. I couldn't hear anything on stage. But one of the things that we did, and we've practiced, that I think worked really well, is me and the bass player, Paul, we had a practice session of just us, and we've actually got one tomorrow night because Fraser's on holiday. And we spent about 3 to 4 hours EQing our amps with each other. So he'd start, because he runs very much like Royal Blood scenario, so he's got a bass amp and a guitar amp, and he goes through an octave up into the guitar amp to give it a bit of fuzz. So he started off playing.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it works really well. In recording, we found it doesn't really help. It kind of fills in. It just sounds a bit muddy, but live, it really and practice, it really fills in his side of the frequency. But what we did, and I think it worked really well, so I think most people should try, is he started off where I'd play, and then he'd bring in his bass side of things, and I go, it's a little bit bright, bring in a little bit more bass to complement what my amp's doing. Yeah. And then we go, right, that sounds really cool. Now kick in your guitar part, and then kick that and go, bit scooped, bring in some more mids, that works well. And then so we EQ'd everything independently until we could hear everything.
That's pretty cool.
in its own individual way. Because there's no point in him having his little guitar rig if it sounds the same as mine, because you're not going to hear it. It will just cancel each other out and it'll be pointless. So it has to have its own little slot in the frequency range. Yeah, to hear everything. And we've done that a few times. I mean, he's just bought a Dingle bass, which looks incredible.
Yeah,
it's a fan fret monster. So we're going to spend a bit of time doing the same thing tomorrow night with like, just fiddling just an EQs. He bought it to practice last week, and it's substantially louder as a guitar than his Fender Precision bass one. It's like so much more gain. So we're going back to sort of fiddling and EQing, but it seemed to work really well. You've got the best description I've heard of it is, I can't remember what, it might have been Paul Tipler, the guy we mentioned earlier on. He said if you look at EQ and like mixing and recording as a chessboard, if your guitar takes up that piece of the chessboard, nothing else can go in there because you won't hear it. It has to go in another part. It has to fill in.
That's a good analogy.
Another part of the EQ spectrum for it to have its own voice. You know, it's kind of the same as like I'm doing vocals. I practice in the van on the way to work, which I must look like a massive knobhead doing that. But if you sing along to a track, and then you get to that point where you hit the right pitch, and your voice disappears, and that's the same thing. So when you're both singing exactly the same pitch, you can't hear yourself anymore. No. And that's exactly the same thing. You obviously don't want the guitar and the bass to be in the same. By definition, they're different things. That's why I think when you get two guitar players,
that's why no one pays attention to the good singers at karaoke.
Yeah,
everyone just pays attention to the bad ones.
Yeah, no one expects you to be good at karaoke, to be fair. But if you've got two guitar players with the same EQ frequency, they just cancel each other out, and it's kind of pointless having it. So you do need a slight variation for it to work, I think. But yeah, so yeah, that's the Marshall. Yeah, again, it's not a unique pairing, Gibson and Marshall, but it works.
Right, well, let's talk about this gorgeous cab you got here. So you're my second guest with a Zilla cab.
Yes.
And endorsement recently as well, didn't you?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I've actually I introduced Pete Hanfrey to Zilla years ago. It was a guy I used to work with. Paul from Zilla used to have a workshop in Hounslow in West London, and the guy I used to work with was like, "Oh, I've got a Zilla cab." I was like, "Who the fuck are they?" And got me onto it. By the time I sort of found out about it, they'd moved to near Bristol, and I played one, and again it was like light bulb moment. Like, that just sounds great. Like no matter what amp I put through it, what I did with it, it sounded cool. And I'm more like I messaged Paul about a whole endorsement thing, and I must admit I'm not. I think some people put too much stock in endorsements, whereas I think it's just like I've had about 5 or 6 different Zilla cabs, and I wouldn't have asked him if I didn't believe in the brand anyway. I've come across people like, oh, I'd love to be endorsed by them, and I think, why? You don't own any of their stuff. like I if I didn't like his stuff, I wouldn't ask for endorsement. So I think some people kind of want an endorsement because they think it's cool rather than is it what you want?
Yeah, I mean, it's like me. I'm trying to knock on the Ernie Ball's door at the moment for a string endorsement.
Yes.
But I've only used their strings my whole life.
So
I'm not going to go to another brand just for the sake of endorsement when I don't believe in that product, when I don't want to change products at all.
Yeah. You looked at what Marshall's criteria for an endorsement is, and I'm never going to get that point.
B/.
yeah, basically, yeah.
Question 1, are you Slash? Yes or no? That's the only question.
Are you Slash? Are you ever likely to beat him? No. But one of the things, like, Marshall's got the same reputation, Orange has got a great reputation as well. And I can't remember who it was I was speaking to, but they were at like an Orange in Dorset, and they went, we're going on tour in Europe, I need a stack. And they were like, yeah. And they just set them up with an amp. And like that's cool. Like having that much backup from the company is great.
I think that's the difference between like people like you and me and world touring musicians.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I know for a fact that like the big bands like Anthrax, Megadeth, like I know for a fact they have storage space here with equipment in, like tons of it.
Yeah.
And it's just here when they turn up, and if they get here and it ain't working, they'll just bring them up and like send me another one.
Yeah, exactly that.
I find that's what a lot of people are doing these days, which is like you see people getting their own custom guitars made, like or signature guitars made, but they're modelling them off old guitars.
Yeah.
I watched Matt Heafy's guitar collection video the other day that he uploaded.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
And he said that when he had his signature Epiphone made, he sent Gibson a Gibson he owned from when he was 15 years old. He went, make that into a Epiphone model.
Yeah.
Copy this as much as you can, but make a 7-string model as well.
Yeah.
So it's like I used to wonder about signature guitars back in the day, but like now as I got older and I understand more, it makes more sense now. Because guitars are just made a certain way, and I feel like if you try and change it too much, it doesn't. It's not the same thing.
Well,
so.
I kind of, because I ride bikes as well, motorcycle, and I always look at Gibson. Not so much. Marshall's got a little bit of it. I heard a really cool story that Peter Dyatlov, the guy who owns Dyatlov amps, is basically two. It's Peter Stafford and Peter Dyatlov. Dyatlov's the techie dude, and Stafford's the businessman. Yeah. They work perfectly together. Peter Dyatlov got bored of fixing Marshalls because early Marshalls were fairly unreliable. Sounded great, blew up all the time. Being typically Germans, like that's not good enough. So he fixed them and then got bored of that, made his own brand, Diesel. But with Gibson, I've had a couple of like Harley Davidson motorcycles. I've had quite a few actually. And what I see with Gibson is the same, and this must be an American thing, the same with the guitars. Like I could find, and I've murdered this one, so it doesn't really work, but I could find faults in this all day long. Like finishing faults, the nut wasn't cut properly, the neck wasn't set right, the frets aren't perfectly straight. I would find faults in this all day long, and it will just sound better than anything else in the shop to me. There's a character that you get from Rough and Ready that you don't get. It's like there was a video. I think this proved it personally. And again, Tony's completely subjective to who you're talking to, like in every possible way. There was a guy who did it, and he had a black Les Paul Custom, and an LTD Les Paul Custom, effectively their version of it, with the same binding, same body, the same pickups. He put the same pickups in it, and the Les Paul night and day difference in sound. And it's just down to there's a character, and it's the same with bikes. Like my dad rides bikes as well, and he's never owned a Honda, and he said they're so good they're boring. If you want a bike that starts every day and will never break down, it's the best bike you can buy. But it's got no character. It's absolutely soulless. And I kind of look at it in the same way. Like in the pursuit of absolute perfection, I think you lose a lot of character.
Yeah.
It's kind of like with production and stuff. For me personally, I got really bored of listening to metal because it got to the point where everything was so produced to perfection that it all started to sound the same, no matter what you did with it. And you lost a lot of ambience and a lot of character, in my opinion, anyway.
It's not only that. I mean, talking about signature guitars still, it's like if you were going to get a signature guitar made, your own model, how many years of playing guitars have you been doing it to get to that point?
Yeah.
You've been playing the guitars with the faults and the characteristics.
Yeah,
you don't want
perfection.
And then there's someone's asking you to build your perfect guitar, and it's like, does such a thing exist?
No, I don't think it does.
If Solar, for example, was to say to me, hey, we want to make you a signature guitar, I'd just be like, okay, make that.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I have one.
Yeah.
Because I like this, and I'm happy with it.
I mean, I think for me, I mean, again, I went through loads of different. I think I've changed so many guitars. I love PRS stuff. I think PRS as a brand is probably as close to perfect as you're going to get. Their quality control is awesome. I've never picked up a PRS and gone, oh, look at that, there's a slight. They're perfect.
It's actually one of the few brands I haven't actually played yet. I mean, I've been in guitar stores and I've played every brand I could pick up.
Yeah.
But I've never actually played a PRS myself.
They're beautiful.
They look gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
I really like the Mark Tremonti.
Yeah.
That's a really nice guitar. Because I've always liked the bird inlays. I think that's one of the first things that attracts me with the PRS. Everyone knows PRS for those bird inlays.
They look awesome.
Amazing.
They look awesome. But yeah, I mean, there was a thing I read that said that Paul, I think this is why his quality control's so good. Paul himself, on a Friday morning, goes down to the workshop when the guitars are finished and he picks random guitars. And if they don't meet his standards, he puts a bandsaw straight through and cuts it off. And you think, what? That's just fucking extreme. But he's built his reputation on perfection.
Yeah.
So, and I think the reason that they're so good with quality control is because all of his luthiers don't know if they're going to pick his guitar. Is he going to come down and pick one of my guitars? Because if he does, I'm not up to Paul's scratch. If standards, if he puts a bandsaw for it, so they're all consistently good. Whereas
don't let him play that, for God's sake.
No, yeah. But then I picked up it was a red Les Paul Custom in Guitar years ago, and there was a big scratch down the binding now, and I sort of went to what the fuck is that? And they went, oh, it's just Gibson. I was like, really? They went, yeah. I went, I'm not paying $3,500 for that when you can buy a PRS for £1,000 less and get absolute perfection.
See, I've never understood distressed guitars.
Oh well, yeah, like aged relics.
I went into guitar in Camden the other day. A couple of weeks ago, and I saw a distressed, beat to shit Fender for $6,000. And I gotta admit, I never understood it. I'm just like, I could take my guitar and a bit of sandpaper and just create that same effect now.
Yeah.
I never understood
it.
It's
for people who want to own a vintage Fender and don't want to pay the money for an actual vintage Fender.
And they don't want to wait 25 years for it to become vintage.
No, yeah, exactly, yeah. It's horses for courses. Like I said, I always find Les Pauls are a little bit rough around the edges, but I think it gives them the character and the sound that I'm after. Same with I've gone through so many pickups in my years of playing. Like, I've tried everything, bare knuckle, you name it. I've probably tried it, and I've come to the conclusion there are 4 pickups worth looking at: single coil, humbucker, P90, active. That's it. Don't worry about anything else, because the differences are so subtle that all you need, unless you're talking, because them, in my opinion, them pickups actually sound different from each other.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go inside the sort of different kinds of humbuckers, and I think, and I've tried so many different types, I think I've got a fairly good idea. The difference is output.
Yeah. Less
output, more output. That is really the only difference. So as long as you've got a good pickup that picks up what you want it to, it literally picks up the vibrations of the guitar. So if you've got a good pickup that picks up a good balance across the string range, your pedals and your amp are going to do the rest of the tonal variation for you.
Yeah, because I'm not a fan of active. I've got one guitar that's got active pickups, and I stopped using it live after a while because it was more when I was hearing the footage back. If I recorded the show, it was coming through so tinny. Way too much output, and I was there's probably steps I could have taken to reduce that, but I just find for me actives are too much.
Too much input. Well, you can't control that. That's just have that. I think the concept for that came. The idea was that if you have them, you don't need a tube screamer, because back in the day when to get any sort of real gain out of an original Marshall amp, like in the 70s, you had to crank the absolute nuts out of it to a volume that was unusable, or you stick an overdrive pedal in front of it to boost the signal to get the gain. So someone went, we'll just make the pickups louder. Make active pickups that are a preamp within their own right. Yeah. You don't need the pedal anymore. You push it. You think. But I think you're better off having the pedal, because you can just turn it on and off and get different sounds. Like you said, with the actives, you're kind of stuck with what it gives you.
Yeah, because you can't adjust the pickup. The pickup is what it is. There's no adjustments you can make to it.
Yeah, and I find that the only pickups the active, I had EMGs, and they kind of did the thing that I wanted them to at the time. I tried the Fishman Fluence.
I find EMGs are like the Marshalls of the pickup world.
Yeah,
they're staples. They've done their thing.
Well, if you want the modern metal sound, buy a guitar with EMGs and a PV50 5150, and there's your modern metal sound. But again, I find with pickups, with actives, and I think it's because they're electronic, and I think it kind of eliminates the guitar a little bit. Whereas, because they kind of give you what they give you, whereas these are very passives are very, in my opinion, very touchy to the height, how hard you hit the strings, whereas actives compress the sound quite a bit, so which works for consistency, but I find I thought you get a lack of dynamics with the sound.
Yeah.
Apart from the Fluence, the Fishman Fluence model, I think Fishman have done the first true kind of innovative design of pickups with they've got no coils.
I'm actually thinking about buying some of those because I want to put Fishman Fluence in this.
They're really good.
So but the good thing is about these pickups here, these are the Duncan Solos, so these were designed, these are like the stock pickups in this guitar, but they were designed for the solo guitars.
Yeah.
But these are going as well. I posted in a group saying I want to rip these out and put Fishmans in there. Would anyone be interested in these?
Yeah.
People queuing up in my inbox wanting these, offering me money. I didn't even set a price. People just offering me money for them from different countries as well.
Oh, wow.
So these are pretty good. I mean, I'll demonstrate these to you after we're done recording if you want. But
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I'm thinking about switching that because I'm not much of a pickup person. I haven't experimented with a lot of pickups in my time, but I've heard such good things about the Fisher Influence. And I was like, I do want to push my sound a little bit more. I'm happy with where my sound is, but if there was anywhere I was going to make any changes right now, it would be the pickup. So I'm actually thinking about but I think I've got to do some routing to get the Fishmans in there because I don't think they fit.
Oh really?
Yeah, I've seen that in discussion groups that people have swapped about, and they don't quite fit. You have to do a little bit of routing.
Well, I mean, I stuck them in a set of them Fishman Fluents in a Les Paul Standard studio, like a really stripped back version, and they sounded great. And also you get the voicings, the passive or active voicing.
Yeah.
You can switch between the two, which is really cool. Because I always think, I mean, if you're going passive, active works for metal, like chunky chunk metal, techie metal stuff works perfectly. I don't like active pickups at all on clean. So I would use, if I was going to use a set of them, I'd use the passive.
Too much output for a clean tone, isn't there? Way too much.
Yeah.
It's so bright.
Yeah, exactly. So I would flick to the passive setting on them for the clean stuff, and then flick back to the active for the heavy stuff.
We're back for part 2 of Mr. Dean Hanfrey. Before we start talking about what you just played there, let's go back to the Zilla cab.
Oh, right.
Let's talk about how did you land on that cab? Because it sounds meaty. Talk about the specs of it.
Yeah, well, I've gone through many different Zilla cabs. I've had oversized tuba 12s, mini tuba 12s, everything. And I kind of, now that Nautilus is a 3-piece, I kind of thought, well, I want to make as much noise on my own as I can. But I don't want the weight and the cumbersome size of a full-blown 4x12. Like a friend of mine offered me an orange 4x12, which I think is one of the best 4x12s on the market, but they are so heavy, like obscenely heavy. But what I like with orange cabs, I think it looks cool. It's a picture frame front, which I've got on this, and they make their cabs out of 18mm ply, not 12. Now, it could completely be in my brain, but I always think they just sound a bit beefier than a standard cab does. They've got a little bit of a broadness to the sound. So I messaged Paul and I was like, I've got this idea. Can you make me a compact 4x12? And he was like, being Paul, he went, yeah, of course I can. He said, I've actually just built one myself. I was like, all right. So he sent me some pictures, and Paul loves really garish, ugly toe legs. It was bright green, I think it was, to match his Marshall. And I was like, how small can you get it? He went, he's actually got it down to 1.5mm of wood between each speaker. Sweet. It's so small. And then I had a cab with, so I've had it made, like depth-wise, it was like a really deep cab to get a lot more bottom end. So I had it made a bit thinner, so it's just easier to manage. Yeah. And when you look at sort of the actual dimensions of this, it's not a lot different from his super fat boy tuba 12, like physical size. Yeah. It's almost the same. So I said also, what we said about the 18mm, it's made out of 18mm marine ply, not 12, because I like the bottom end. I think it gives a better bottom end. Seems to hold the low tunings better. And I've got two different speakers in here, both greenbacks. Like I had redbacks, like 150 watt redbacks. They sound really good, but they're so powerful that unless you're driving the amp to almost exploding volumes, they kind of don't do their job. I mean, they're 150, they're made to be played at obscene volumes for a long period of time. So I was like, I want something lower, a bit lower wattage. So I've got two standard British-made 25-watt greenbacks, and then two the Heritage 55. Now the difference with this, apparently, they do two different types. You've got the G12H Heritage, which is their kind of the creme de la creme of their speakers, and you've got the 75 hertz cone and the 55 hertz cone. The 55 hertz cone is a bass cone, which they actually use in vintage 30s as well, apparently, talking to Paul. So they tend to be a little bit darker, and they hold, I think, in Paul's opinion, they're the best speaker that Celestion have ever made. Which I think is quite high praise for someone who knows. I mean, Paul knows cabs.
Yeah, he's been making them for a long time.
He knows everything about. I message him quite regularly, going, "What do you think of this?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's cool. But this is better." Or he knows that man's knowledge is mind blowing. And so I was like, "What do you reckon on these speakers?" He said, "I think they're the best speakers. They don't make them anymore." He said, "I think they're the best speakers that they've ever made." So I was like, "Right, I'll have two of them, and I'll have two standard greenbacks." I mean, they're voiced very similar, both being greenbacks, but the G12H Heritage sound a little bit darker. They haven't got as much grunt, or not as much cut, but that complements normal greenbacks really well. I'm actually in the process of talking to him. I think one of the best cabs that I ever had all round. I had a super fat boy in blue snakeskin Tolex made from him with the 80mm plier with two 75-watt creambacks, which is what P. Hanfrey has got in his upright.
Yeah.
They are brilliant speakers. They're kind of that guy Fluff who does the internet stuff. That's right. He did a review of the M and the H creambacks, and he said it's like Celestion got a greenback and a vintage 30 and went, which is basically the two best speakers they've ever made. And I absolutely love that cab. But for me, now, the way I've that was a good few years ago, the way I've progressed now is I prefer the M over the H. I find the H has got a little bit too much bottom end for my taste, which I'm just going to let the bass do that.
Is that why you've gone through quite a lot of Zilla cabs, just finding
different reasons. I started off with a 2B12, and like 2B12 is all you really need. If you're playing a show where they mic up the cabs, you don't need full speakers really. Yeah. And then I had an oversized 1B12 because I really wanted to sort of make my rig as small as possible. That was when Darkeye was still going, so there were two guitar players, and then when Nautilus started, I had a bit of we talked about light bulb moments earlier on. I had a light bulb moment once, years ago, at the Underworld. I went to see Intronaut, so I love Intronaut, and they were supported by Animals as Leaders, cool. And Scale the Summit. I don't know a lot about them, but a mad technical guitar. Yeah. And Scale the Summit came out first, 2 axe effects straight into the desk, and I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool.
Underworld's got some of the best live sounds you'll ever hear for me.
Who's that?
The Underworld in general.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
And then Animals as Leaders came out, very similar setup, axe effects straight into the desk, cool, sounded really good. And then Intronaut came out with 2 full Metal Royal Atlantic stacks and absolutely floored everyone in the room. They pissed all over the other 2 bands. I mean, I was a fan of them prior to the other 2, but just from
I guess it helps because you got all the amps on stage pushing the sound.
They didn't even mic the cabs, they just cranked the nuts out of them, and it was like being pummeled in the face. And that's when I decided, like, the digital stuff's cool, but it's not for me. I like being loud on stage. And then, when sort of Nautilus started, I thought, you know what, I'd like, apart from this slight ego thing about having a 4x12 on stage, even though it's completely unnecessary by today's standards. I mean, the reason the 4x12 was invented, or the full stack, was because speakers back then weren't powerful enough to handle 100 watts. And you needed volume, yeah. So now with PAs, and you've got like the Celestion Redback, which is 150 watts on its own. You've got the Copperback, I think it's called, which is 250 watts on its own. You don't need, really, but I quite like the idea. So what I'm going to do now, and as I said to you earlier on, I've been having sort of recurring back issues, and whilst this is a small 4x12, it's still got a fair bit of weight to it. So what I'm planning on doing is taking these speakers out, and they weigh about 4 to 5 kilos each, I think. So you're talking about 20 kilos worth of material, ripping them out, blocking off 2 of the holes, and turning it into an oversized 2x12 using 2 Celestion Neo creambacks. And the Neo creambacks weigh about 2 kilos each. So you're talking, 16 kilos of weight I'll be getting rid of.
Yeah.
And the Neos sound great. We went to the guitar show last week in Birmingham, and he had this effectively his version of this with 4 neo creambacks in it, and it sounded great.
Alright, let's talk about the riffs we opened up part 2 just
right.
there. So was that some Nautilus material?
It was. The first 2 were. The other 2 I just made up. The first one, I'm not a very good songwriter.
I would disagree.
I think I write okay riffs, but I tend to, like, Fraser's the mastermind when it comes to timing. Like, he's a proper drummer. Like, I'll play a riff and he'll go, oh, that's in something, and I'll go, okay. Like, the first riff that I played, which is off of the song, I'm going to embarrass myself now, Circus of Contempt, I believe I called it. Right. We call it 11 because the whole song's in 11s, 11/8.
All right. Okay.
So the main riff, which is one I first played, that's in 11/8 apparently. So I played it and he was like, I don't know what that's in, and he counted it and he went, that's 11/8. I was like, cool,
sweet,
we'll go with that.
At least someone knows.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's it. Okay. Basically, and I quite like repetitive droney stuff. So it's the sort of the little accent is on the half beat. But then and then the verse is in 11s as well. And it's just, basically the verse, which I sing over. I haven't done the delay to sort of suit that yet. And then we go into like a groovy version of the original riff. Like that, really. Just to try and kind of, I thought that tune there. Yep, a little bit. Just to, I quite like.
So when you're writing all these sort of like odd time riffs, like it's never intentional. It's
absolutely
sort of
not.
Plain
That's just how my brain works.
Yeah,
to be honest.
You hear what you think sounds.
Yeah, I mean, I like what I like. I mean, there's so many different ways of writing odd time signatures. Like the whole gent thing is built on polyrhythms, isn't it?
Yeah.
And on timings. But what I like about certain bands, and I come back to sort of, I mentioned Tool. What I like about Tool stuff is it's off time, but the bars are long enough for it to still be groovy. So it's not like you're not going, oh fucking hell, like my Sugar stuff is so off that it's hard to get into it. Unless you lock in with the drummer, it's hard to sort of get into it. Whereas Tool, it's all off, but it's not. There's still a groove to it that you can kind of nod your head to. So I'll start with a riff, and then I'll either add or subtract. So I'll add a little bit more and go, oh, that makes it off time, or I'll take a little bit away and that makes it off time, or maybe I'll do both. The other riff that I played, which is on a new song that have we played it? Yeah, we've already played it like once, but that's one of the ones we've done. Has just got a load of horrible chords that, again, I know next to no music theory at all, so I just kind of make it up as I go along. And I came up with these, I was just sort of picking out chords. And that's one of them. I don't know what that is, if it's anything. And then this one. So I just kind of move my fingers around until I find the sound that I like. And then we came up with this, the original version. It was kind of like this. And we just play it around until it finishes back where it started. Yeah. Kind of thing.
I think one of those chords I saw in there was like a flat third kind of chord, but like
I'll take your word for it.
I'm kind of the same when I'm writing chords. Like if I'm writing riffs, I can write riffs around chord progressions. If I'm actually writing chords themselves, I just play shit until something sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the kind of a definition of a progression, isn't it? You just keep progressing it until it fits where you want it to. But what I do is I took that, and then we came up with another. What was the bit? It was like that, and I was like, I wonder what happens if I stick them two together. And I spent about 3 hours at home taking them chords and putting that pattern to it. and it came out, which is turned out to be the intro song. Kind of like that, and
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I took a chord progression that we already had, and I said to I sent it to Bob. I was like, I figured out mixing two together, and he was like, that hurts my face. It's really confusing. Which sometimes, like, we've literally come out in Violation. We had a riff where the drums and the guitars deliberately went out of time with each other, which is really hard to play when you're supposed to follow the drums.
I've got one riff that's like in my sort of bank of songs that have yet to be finished writing. I've got one thing that's like the drums are doing 4/4 and the riff is completely out. I actually don't know what time signature I wrote the riff in, but it all goes completely out. But then by the time the next riff comes in, everything's all back in line.
Yeah.
I quite like it. I'm quite proud of it. I'm hoping I can use it.
Well, that's the polyrhythms, isn't it? When it comes in and out of each other. And we found the riff that we did, we figured out on the third repetition, it all came back together. So live we played it live a few times, and everyone was sort of like, they've gone well out of time with each other. And then it's back in again. It was really cool. But because your natural instinct is to follow the drums.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to follow the drums in that instance. You're supposed to follow yourself. So when we played it, I just had to sort of stare at my fingers, go, don't listen to the drums.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to disassociate and do your own thing, and then hope it all works out later.
Yeah, exactly that. So, but yeah, I mean, what's the other thing we've been messing about with? We got working on that for another song of some description. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I've had that for years and I've just never used it.
I think every guitarist has got a fucking library full of them, haven't they?
Yeah.
Just riffs that he's written and just never used.
Well, I mean, every now and then we'll play and I go, oh, I've got something that'll work with that, and it will be something that I came up with decades ago. But yeah, it's I'm trying to keep like the definition of when I started Nautilus was to try and keep it simple. Kind of like I really like. I don't know how the actual riff is played, but Deftones, Be Quiet and Drive. Yeah. It's just like it's just kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I love how simple it is, and that's basically the whole song. And fundamentally, it's kind of the whole song, the same pattern. And I love the way it kind of just sticks on that, and it makes it a lot easier, especially when you're doing vocals, to do that. You just, if I haven't got to worry too much about the guitar, then I can concentrate on trying to get decent vocal lines and stuff a bit more.
Does like the vocal parts of your songwriting affect how you write songs in the long run as well? Because obviously, like, I mean, for me, like, I mean, like I said, I don't do a lot of vocals in general, but like for me, I've never really learned to do both at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I played piano as a kid, I played guitar, but like, if I try to play a song that I know all the words to and try to sing along on guitar, one's going to suffer.
Yeah.
So some people are better than others, obviously, but like, one's going to suffer for me. So does that come into your
Yes, it does.
process?
Yeah, I think I deliberately. One thing that I've never done before that we're trying to do with this one is have big choruses, because people like singing along to stuff, and it's very hard to sing along to just balls out angry metal, like in a kind of chanty kind of way. So one of the songs we've got, which is it was going to be called Wolf in Bear's Clothing, but I think I'm going to change it to called Cockroaches Don't Ask Permission, just because I like really stupid song names. The main riff. That's the main riff. So it's sort of off a little bit in the middle, it's a little bit of a jump. The chorus is just... That's it.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier for me to think about decent vocal phrasing over that, because it's all I've got to do every now and then is I'll just look at, that's where mine's got to go.
Yeah.
I found, so I'm trying to sort of concentrate on, in them instances, with actually coming up with really what I would consider good vocal phrasing, and like, is it chanty? Can people go, oh yeah, like sing along to that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right. I'm not, I was Devin Townsend's an obscenely good musician who can play really complicated stuff and sing at the same time. And I'm certainly nowhere near that talented. So one does have to suffer a little bit.
Yeah.
But I kind of think it's the old. It's like someone said to me years ago, everyone remembers a good riff, no one remembers a good solo, unless you're a nerd. Do you know what I mean? So you play the intro to Sweet Child of Mine and almost everyone on the planet goes, oh, that's Guns N' Roses. You play the solo, most people are going to go, oh, I know it, but I don't know why. Guitarists will go, that's Sweet Child of Mine. So I think if you've just got a really good, keep it a simple and sweet chord progression, people will get into it and they'll kind of nod their head to it. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do with this, whilst keeping it simultaneously interesting for myself. Write music where people are going, yeah, that's really good. I got into metal so young that by the time my friends in secondary school got into metal, I was like, oh, I've been listening to this for years already. I'm kind of a little bit bored of it. So I started,
fatigued.
yeah. Well, I started getting into music that interested me for other reasons. I mean, I love like Obituary. It's like the Hellmans of death metal. I know what it's going to be. It's like AC/DC. No one goes, I wonder what the next AC/DC album's going to sound like. You know exactly what. Well, they're not going to do another one, but then no one's ever wondered what it's going to be. You go, I know exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be AC/DC, the same as the last 30 albums they've recorded. But that's like Tool, because I always liked the fact that I never quite knew what was coming up next.
Yeah.
I'd also love the fact that they write albums when they fucking want to, and they don't pump them out. They're like, I'm going to make you wait 13 years for a new album. You're going to fucking like it. But yeah, it's I think what you said about one suffers. I used to talk about this, Al, the old guitar player from Violation Complex. I used to talk to him about it. And he was a better guitar player than me. So he used to have to concentrate on his vocals, whereas I used to have to concentrate on the guitar. So once I actually got, there's a song that we had called The Three Faces of Pig Boy, and he would literally forget.
I remember that song.
Yeah, he would literally forget the chorus every single time we practiced it, and he'd remember it every gig, which is the right way to do it, I suppose. But I would always have to think about what I was playing because I wasn't as good a guitar player as him, and I'd just kind of remember the vocals as I went along.
I can't remember if it was you guys or another band, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was I think it was Violation Complex, wasn't there a song where Fraser used to get up and run around the drum kit?
He did once, yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
I think that was a Bull.
That wasn't the plan. I think he just did it.
That was a Bull and Vic gig, I think it was, like back in the early days.
I think he just did it. It wasn't planned. There was a gig that we played, and this was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. We had a song called "And the Lord Knows That Noah will drown with the rest of the infidels." Right? I got the idea from this, Nile.
Yeah.
They got that song "Papyrus" containing the text to protect its possessor from who works in the water or something ridiculous like that. And I'm like, I love silly long song titles, so we called it that. And there was a bit where it went really, really heavy and then just cut dead. And it was like the second part of the song, and it went really quiet and mellow and then built up again. And at that exact moment that it went dead, all the lights went off, and I went, fucking hell, how did they know that was going to happen? I thought, they must have planned that, surely. Pete must have told them we've got this bit. And then I was like, I've got no volume. My guitar amp's dead. And I was like, what the? And it turns out at that exact moment, Fraser had knocked a cymbal stand over and cut through the mains cable and blown all the fuses in the building. And I was like, what are the chances of that happening? It was that's why I thought, because it was that exact moment, I thought they must have planned that. There's no way that was a coincidence, and it turns out it was.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, I mean, there's various, like, songwriting. Like, I'm shit. I've tried to write deep, meaningful songs, but my life's been fairly good, and I've got nothing to write about.
Nothing to draw upon.
No, literally nothing. I've had a pretty good, I had a good upbringing.
So where does your lyrical inspiration come from then?
Usually horror films.
Oh, nice.
Or just concepts. Like I'm not. I try and write the Circus of Contempt is about Parliament. I'm not a particularly politically driven person. Like, I know some people are like really into politics, and I'm a bit of a nihilist. I don't really care. So, but I thought I genuinely believe they're all idiots. Depending either side, I think they're all dickheads. So I thought I'll just write a song about they're all wankers. It doesn't matter which side you stand on, they're all knobs. We've got what was the other one? I tend to I'll just come up with a line and then see what comes out of it, and I'll just grow and grow and grow and grow, and then sometimes there's no theme in it until I've finished, and I go, oh yeah, there's the theme, and that will become the name of the song, sort of thing. But we had a song called The Voiceless. No, what was it? Oh no, the one we've done now. I can't remember the names, man. The one with the really the odd chords is about how human beings are pillaging the earth, and Mother Nature's going to fuck us all at one point.
Oh, she will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's because I got the idea for that because the chorus is how do you? And I'll come up with a line. How do you plead for taking more than you'll ever need? Which is humans just. It was the idea was it was a court case, and Mother Nature was suing us for continuously just taking more than we'd ever need.
Yeah.
Like over consuming sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because I always think
because we do. We just.
No. Yeah. Well, I think we're the only species on Earth that takes that everything else is a balance. I was talking to my girlfriend's daughter about this. We were watching a nature documentary, and she was like, there's a pack of wolves chasing a bison, and they got away. The baby got away. She was like, oh yay, the baby survived. I was like, yeah, no. I said that's lovely. I said, but that pack of wolves is probably going to die now. She was like, why? Well, because they've got no food. And it was kind of like, oh. I said, as horrible as that is the circle of life.
Yeah.
And then pack of wolves will only ever take what they need. They will never ever eat more than they need to take. Unlike humans, where we just keep taking and more and more and more.
Morbid obesity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
you don't see a fat lion, do you?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like we take what we want when we want, however we want, and unfortunately, that's just the way humans work. And that was the kind of concept of the lyrics and the choruses. How do you plead for taking more than you could ever need? For robbing her blind, ignoring the signs, or something like that along them lines. But usually, I'll just come up with a line and just see what comes out of it. Like I'll watch a lot of horror films, so I wrote the Violation song. The Voiceless was based off of a film called was it called Voiceless? Yeah, I think it was called Voiceless, and it was about a ventriloquist who got murdered and she turned into some evil demon thing. And it was a great horror film. It was really good. One of the ones that's always stuck with me. So I thought I like that. And what I used to do is I'd watch a film, and I'd have a pen and paper with it, and I'd write down key parts of the story.
Yeah.
Like I was always really interested in not conspiracy theories because that's a rabbit hole that never ends. Yeah. But like I like myths, mythologies and stuff. And there's the one that always interested me was the Mothman.
The Mothman prophecy.
Yeah. And so I wrote a song, Flight of the Mothman, which was based on the collapsing of the bridge in, was it the 1950s, wasn't it? And the Mothman signs and all that kind of thing. And I really like the fact that no one's ever figured it out. There's another one called the Dyatlov Pass incident, where like...
Oh yeah, the Dyatlov Pass.
And it's so nuts, like it's so mad.
Yeah.
That like they were like pro hikers, weren't they? And they just abandoned their tent in the middle of the night. Like no one does that. Even I know not to do that in the Russian winter. And they were pros. And I like things like that because there's no tangible explanation to it.
It just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, and I started writing a song called Dyatlov's Past.
It's the same reason why it doesn't make sense to me how camera technology has come so far. Yet every picture of a Sasquatch is blurry.
Yeah.
Why is that suddenly now that cameras are better, no one's taking any pictures of Sasquatches anymore?
Or why is it the videos on You've Been Framed don't get any better? It's like they're just pulling videos out of the 70s and sticking it on there. But yeah, no.
1995 timestamps in the corner.
Yeah, but I mean, the song with like songwriting, I'm not one of these. I'm really lazy. Like I should practice more, and I should. I mean, it's kind of like we had this conversation. Me and Paul, my bass player, had this conversation because he's doing lyrics for vocals for the first time and finding his voice, and he's doing really well. And we're trying to get like harmonies going and stuff like that. But it's a learning curve. I didn't do vocals for years, so I'm trying to get back on track. I'm trying to sing more, if that's a phrase. I don't want to just do flat out angry vocals all the time and do something a bit of colour to it. So he's trying to do stuff like that as well. And we were talking about like, who is he? I can't remember the name of him. Someone like Maynard James Keenan, for example, who's considered to be a bit of a genius lyrically. Yeah. He's probably one of the best vocalists of the last 30 years. Like the guy's incredible. And sometimes I think people think that he just bashes out these amazing hooks and lyrics, and he doesn't. He sits there for fucking days and just churns out crap until he goes, that's it. Yeah. And then you'll build on that. And there was one that this guy, Paul, was talking about, and I can't remember the name of who he was talking about. He was like, I think he was like a blues musician who was considered to be the best of the best in his field. And it was like, the man's a genius, like there's never been anyone like him. And everyone just thought it just flew out of him, like it was easy. And there was videos of him, and he was like, "I sometimes smash my face against the wall because I can't write anything." And it's not an overnight process. It's very slow.
It's 95% of what you write you ain't ever going to use. It's crap. It always is. You just got to find little seeds.
Yep.
And then grow the tree from that seed.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a video with Ed Sheeran, and he I hate to quote Ed Sheeran, but he calls, and it makes a lot of sense. He calls 10,000 hours. He says you've got to put in your 10,000 hours. The theory, and he said write every song that you come up with. Just right, and that's something I've definitely been guilty of, where I'll come up with a song, go, oh that's crap, and I'll just bin it. I won't keep it. I won't, and then one of the things when we started Nautilus, I was like, what we're not going to do, because what we did in Darkeye, we come up with an intro. I'm like, right, we need a transition into the verse. Then we'd spend 3 weeks working on a transition into a verse.
It's not always the way it works, is it? Sometimes you might have to. That's what I used to do in the early days. I used to think you have to start a song, write a song start to finish, but it's the same as making a movie. You know, they never make a movie start to finish.
Yeah.
They might film the end of a movie before they even start filming the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the way you got to work. You just got to come up with, I try and come up with just one thing. I usually tend to try and write a chorus.
Yeah.
Nice around big chorus, or I'll write a verse riff. But I won't write it for a particular song for any reason. I'll just be like, right, okay, there's that, and then one day I'll just go back and I'll just go through things.
Yeah.
I actually went back through some like really early Abandon the Faith like MIDI files I've got on my computer the other day. I found one and I was like, brilliant. It's just a kick pattern. That's all it was. But I found this kick pattern. I was like, I like that. I'm actually going to try and use it soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we said earlier on. If you remember, record everything, because you might come up with something and it doesn't work for what you're trying to do at that time. 6 months down the line, you'll go, oh, that'll fit perfectly with that, and then you just bring it back, sort of thing. Sometimes, obviously, you have to twiddle and adjust and improve it a little bit to fit what you're doing at that time. But I usually try and go with the vibe of the song. Like we'll play a song. Like we've got one at the moment that we're working on, which hopefully we're going to have ready for the next Metal to the Masses. And we wanted to write a song that starts and doesn't repeat itself effectively. It does. It's a repetitive pattern. The pattern,
but not one single thing repeats.
Yes, the basic pattern is. That's it. That's the basic. That's the intro, basic chords, and then it will go into like a version where I've kind of filled it out a bit, so it'll be like. And then that will be like a verse, and then the ending is just the same thing. Same thing, but it just gets progressively heavier.
Yeah.
And then the last bit, which is, again, I was like, let's just go nuts at the end and then cut it dead. And Fraser just plays this insanely aggressive drum beat. And it's just me and Paul. And that's it. Like just a little huzzah at the end of the thing. What's the other one that I like blending two riffs together as well, which is one of the ones we've done. So we've got it's like a bit of a breakdown on the song called The Watcher, which the main riff that's like the main riff, and then we've got the tail riff. That's the tail end of it.
Okay.
And then I took that, and then we added this whole section which starts off as one riff and merges into something different. If I can... No, I can't remember how it goes. Yeah. Like that. And then the second half, it just... one, and then you add a little bit of the second riff in each time until it's come full circle and starts with something else.
A lot of your songwriting process is coming up with like a cool idea and going, right, how many times can I repeat
Where
this?
can I go with it?
But differently,
Yeah.
every time. So yeah, it's really cool. I really like that.
Where can I go
process.
with it? What can I do? I think that's we mentioned when we spoke on messaging about the difference with. I mean, it's really how people think. You know, I mean, you take someone who's got a completely unique, like I was saying to him, like Adam Jones from Tool isn't I wouldn't call like a great guitar player. I mean, he's not a bad guitar player. He's perfect for what he does. But I don't think there's anyone who thinks like he does. So no one, you stuck any other guitar player in Toll and it wouldn't sound anything like. Same with Dream Theater. If you replace John Petrucci with anyone else, it's not going to be Dream Theater.
No, it wouldn't be.
So, because of how he thinks and how, like I always saw that I can't remember what band it was. They tried to do like a super group and I think it had members of Korn in it. And it just didn't work. It was shit.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember when Devin Townsend brought out his last album, that Empath album, and listened to the track Why. I was just blown away by it. I was like, this isn't something that I would normally listen to, but I love it. But the reason I love it is because I couldn't write that. I heard it and I was just like, I wouldn't know where to start to write a song like that. It was so brilliant. I love that song.
Well, I must admit, I wasn't a fan of Empath, but I love his old stuff. And again, it's like kind of like, how do you put your personality into your playing? Yeah. I mean, that's where I think you get like session musicians. I've met a couple of like obscenely talented session guys, and their job is to emulate someone else. Yeah. So you go, I need you to play something like that, and they go, done. And I'm not saying they can't write their own music, but their job is to sound like someone else because that's what you pay them to do. And then you get someone who's probably balls back to charisma, I think, as well. Like you get someone who's maybe not got the technical skills, but they've got so much character within themselves that it comes out in the way they play. Definitely. Like for me, like we were talking about light bulb moments. For me, the light bulb moment with sort of this setup was the riff from Mother Puncher, Mastodon. Yep. And I was like, that is so heavy. And it was just the... I was like, God, that's heavy. and that was the... It was, I mean, they use quite thinner strings than me, which I think gives it a bit of a raspy, sludgy edge to it. But I picked so hard that I can't really go any smaller than this.
All right, awesome. Right, before we end this episode, I took to the hive mind and I asked for some questions for you the other day.
That's interesting.
So I have a question from Anonymous, which may not remain anonymous for very long. So. As someone previously dubbed you the anti-mid-range messiah, why do you own a Marshall?
Because I was wrong.
There you go.
No. I mean, to be fair, I'll do a bit of an example. So I've got the mids cranked a little bit. Let's back them off. So this is the 90s metal sound. And there's Fear Factory. So yeah, do you know what I mean? The thing is, if you want things to sound super tight in that kind of scenario, it works. Yeah. And that was the sound of 90s metal, wasn't it? Scoop the mids, loads of bass, loads of top end, and that's what I was doing at the time. I know Nick used to tease me that relentlessly about it. But if you want a big hulking guitar tone, it doesn't work. So I'm just in a different part of my life to when he dubbed me the anti-mid persona.
And the second question we had was, what is the most important change you made in your playing/gear to make you the guitar player you are today? And is it Enya?
Is that Pete?
That might have been Pete.
I like it. I do like it, actually. Gear-wise, we've covered that with the kind of journey to back to ground zero as I've sold others. Like I've gone on this huge gear journey to land up back where everyone else started. Like I ignored what everyone else usually starts with, and I've landed up where they started years later.
You rebelled.
Yeah, so I did it. We went, no, I'm not going to do Gibson Marshall, and I've landed up with a Gibson and Marshall. So, but like we said, it works. It's an age-old pairing. You can't, in certain instances, you can't beat it. And I quite like Paul came up with a concept a while back. The reason he bought a Fender Precision bass is I like taking things that are not made for metal and doing it with it.
Yeah.
I think you get a certain there's no.
Not everything's going to work like that, but
of course
it definitely
not.
opens up new doors if you find something.
Well, I bought a semi-hollow. I bought an ES339, an Epiphone, and it turned out it wasn't quite for me, but it sounded awesome. And I was like, I didn't ever think a semi-hollow body guitar would sound great for metal, but it does. It just works. It was just the shape of the guitar and the weight that I didn't like because I was so used to this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's why when I took all the pickups and all the gear, I thought, I wonder if that'll work. But it just doesn't. This kind of, in my opinion, it didn't. The Les Paul's shape doesn't work with the ES3. It's obviously quite a big guitar. So the gears I've landed up coming full circle like everyone else does. With regards to sort of playing, sort of forcing myself, because I got really good at chugging. I was like, I mean, I used to challenge. I said once, I think it was a plus. I said, I'm going to challenge Dino to a chug off, which could have gone really horribly wrong. It sounded terrible, and he almost certainly would have floored me with his picking abilities. But it was the one for me was like Fear Factory, not Archetype, Slave Labour. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Like, I can't do any of this stuff, but I can do that really well. And that basically became my job in Violation Complex, was just to chug. Nice. And Al would play like some noodly stuff underneath because he was better at that. But then I kind of got...
You found that really good compromise there. But...
Yeah, and it worked really well. But for me personally, when I started Darkeye, I was like, I don't want to just play the same thing again and again. I mean, Fear Factory have made a career out of doing it, and it's like, but they've already got that. Like, and now when anyone plays like a triplet chugging pattern like that, they go, oh, it's Fear Factory, or they want to sound like Fear Factory, or because they pioneered that sound. Same with the whole Meshuggah and the Gent thing. Like, they pioneered the whole polyrhythmic, super detuned sound.
Yeah. Or if you get like an old school metal band that does the triplets like that horse pattern sort of.
Yeah,
everyone's going to go back to Maiden, all the time.
Exactly, yeah. So, and I quite like being not a lead player in any way or that technical. I'm a fan of the riff. Really simple, kind of riffs that hit you in the face when you... I mean, I can't play it, but like the opening to March of the Fire Ants, Mastodon's March of the Fire Ants, just... It's so simple, but it just hits you like a wall. And then there's the other... Like, I've always... The idea for Nautilus was, I wonder what it would sound like if Mastodon and Tool had a baby. And Paul, what did I say? Oh, because Fraser's really into Opeth, like he's a huge Opeth fan. And I said to Paul, our style could be, what did I call it? Master Toolopeth. Is our style, is our genre. And I don't like, we got a really good, really nice comment when we did our first gig, which again I thought was a fucking tragic mess. But this guy did a review and said he was surprised. He said, I don't listen to bands before I go and see them if I don't know who they are. So I don't get a preconception of what I'm going to see.
Yeah.
And he said he was surprised by us.
I do that sometimes because, like, if I'm from... Sometimes I might go to a gig where I only know one band playing because I'm like, I remember that band, I don't know anyone else. But yeah, I'll just say I won't listen to them beforehand because I'm like, I don't want to know if they're shit or not.
Yeah. And also, recordings aren't always realistic of what you're going to hear live. Yeah. Live can sound so much better, can sound worse sometimes. But one of the best comments that we got from him was he could hear elements of cult bands, almost certainly talking about Tool and Mastodon, but it was hidden enough that we didn't lose our own personality, which I thought was a great comment to have, because I think everyone's influenced by something. Hiding your influences is really difficult.
Yeah, it's so easy to put your influences on your sleeve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. And he said that our show was not... we didn't have to do any acrobatics or anything to keep it interesting, which was really nice because it means that I don't have to do much on stage. I don't like talking that much on stage, so I just tend to do it. But yeah, it's a never-ending journey. Yeah, and you changed, and it always progressed.
Yeah,
as you go along.
All right. Well, anyway, this has been quite a long episode, so I think we're going to end this one there. Is there anything you want to plug before we end this episode?
Zilla Cabs. I can't plug them enough.
Awesome.
Paul pays me £40 every time I mention the name as well, which is not true. I wish he did. Zilla Cabs, literally can't recommend them enough. Obviously, Nautilus, the band. We've got our next heat coming up for Middleton and Masses. We've been told when it is. I can't remember. We've got a few other gigs coming up, but
I'll post a date here.
yeah, we've got a few other gigs coming up. One in New Cross and one in Tunbridge Wells. It's been a long time since we've played live, like a long time, and it's really nice to be getting back on with stuff as well. I mean, like, I was talking to my girlfriend. She doesn't know anything about bands at all, so I took her to see Season of the Witch, and she was like, "Do they get paid?" I was like, "No." She was like, "It's just for fun." I was like, "Well, yeah, of course. Why else would you do it?" And there is nothing better, in my opinion, than taking something that you've written that's original and getting a good reception.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
Absolutely.
for us, it's definitely getting back on it and gigging live. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of it, and hopefully we get to play Bust Up.
I could sympathise with that because I'm in an active band. We didn't gig for 6 months recently, and I was itching so bad.
Yeah, it's a bit of a killer as well, isn't it? I mean, I think we're rubbish at social media. I wish I was better, but we're just crap at it. And the thing that I found is I was talking to someone from another band. It was a while ago, and they were like, I was like, "Oh, how's it going?" They said, "Oh, we haven't written a song for 6 months." I was like, "Why?" Well, we're just concentrating on social media. And I thought, so why? Like, surely that's the point. Like, social media should be an afterthought, in my opinion.
You do stuff, then you put it on social media.
Well, if you write good music, your social media profile is surely going to grow by dint of the fact that you're writing good music and people like it. So,
effect, isn't it?
yeah, don't concentrate on that one thing in spite of your music. I don't really get it. But I've always been shit at it. So.
Alright, well, anyway, big thanks to our associates, Solar Guitars and Evertune, for their ongoing support, and thank you to everyone out there who's listening and tuning in. And yeah, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks' time. Right, take it easy, guys. See you later.